What's up, O'Brien Army? So, today I'm going to tell a rather chilling story. This is a new Creepypasta night episode. Welcome, dear viewers, to another episode of Creepypasta Night. So tonight, I'm going to tell a true story. A story that actually happened when I was a teenager. When I was a kid, I was always abused by everybody. I was tormented when I was in preschool because they were using toilets as a way to torture me. Because of this, I was never properly potty trained until 16 years old. I was constantly abused by people in my family all the time. Growing up, as a teenager, I felt rebellious, as teenagers commonly do. I got the thought that worshiping Satan would be a good idea. I thought that if I could make everybody afraid of me, then nobody would want to mess with me anymore. Little did I know, things were just going to get worse. So, we moved into a house that I soon discovered was haunted, and the landlord was a total brat. Believe me, he really was. And I soon discovered this house was haunted by a malevolent spirit. It turned out to be a man with a burnt face. I don't know if it was a demon or not, but let's just call it a demon until we know better. So, this demon would feed off of my family's negative energy. My family members would argue and fight a lot more often than we usually would. Eventually, I woke up and I saw that demon standing in my closet. I can't hear a spirit, and I think I can communicate with one, but I can see a spirit, and I can feel their presence. Every time a spirit is near, it basically feels like you're being watched. So, as soon as I woke up and saw that demon in my closet, I just covered my head up with my blanket for like a few seconds. And then when I pulled the covers back down, the demon was gone. What was this demon? Anyway, that's not where the story ends. See, we always got angrier and angrier and angrier. And we were always fighting and bickering. Every time I would go to school, I was always in an angry mood. I was always cussing and using the Lord's name in vain several times a day, and I was always making all sorts of death threats upon anybody who I didn't like. And quite often it was another student. But there were some teachers that made me do that to them. Was it the best idea? Probably not. It was rather stupid. I would always make death threats to distance myself from the people who angered me. I was always angry, and I never thought about my actions very clearly. So, when eventually I got kicked out of that school because they described my behavior as out of control, I ended up going to an even worse school that was several miles away. It was like 2 or 3 cities away. Now, that's not where the story stops. Eventually, a little before we moved out of that house, it was a short time before we moved out. It was approaching my birthday, and I was having an outburst with my family. I would always threaten to kill myself a lot, and I was worshiping Satan at that time, which probably wasn't the best idea. So what happened next was the turning point for me. It was a wake-up call. So I went in my room after my mom disciplined me, and I tried to hang myself in my closet with electrical cords. My mom caught me immediately. No harm was done to me, but that doesn't change the fact that my mom ended up calling an ambulance. I was in the hospital on a 5150 for 3 or 4 days. And when somebody, at some point during my 5150, a man walked into my hospital room, and he gave me a paperback book. At first, I thought it was trash, so I just told my mom to throw it away. But eventually, I told my mom to dig it back out. I read through it, and these were stories about Jesus. These were stories about God. I ended up reading through them. They made me feel better. Eventually, I ended up joining the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. It felt like that church building was calling me into it, as if God knew I needed His help. But what was that demon? Was I possessed? If that is the case, then I fear that there is nothing stopping it from happening again in the future.